Welcome in, everybody, to Fantasy Pros. This is the Fantasy Baseball Podcast. It is me, Joey P, Joe Pizzapia, and today we've got our pitcher preview. And I hope you brought your popcorn, because we've got not one, not two of the geniuses from Pitcher List. We've got both of them here. Alex Fast and, of course, the Presidente himself, Nick Pollack, are joining us on the program today to talk about some of the pitchers that they don't see eye to eye on. So, in case you missed it last year when we had our huge MLB live stream show that went for, 3 days, I think I was doing that show. By the end of it, my beard was down to here, I'm pretty sure. But we had a little bit of a moment where we had these two yokels on, and they basically went at it with each other. And I thought, this is the greatest thing ever. Why are we doing this for 15 minutes? Let's do it for a full hour. And wouldn't you know, these guys agreed right away to come on the show today, just for all of you, all of our listeners and watchers on our YouTube channel at Fantasy Pros MLB, to debate some of these pitchers today. And we have not one list, but two. And I'm just very excited to have the boys here. We had Vice President Alex Fast on a few weeks ago. Of course, President Nick Pollack of Pitcher List was a little late to the show. Everybody else was here first. I told Alex that's because, the presidents, they show up on their own time, right, Nick? That's what happens.
Oh, of course. It's not that fast that he's going to be maybe right on time, and I was prepping everything and then going to, really just not alarm you, Joe. I was thinking of you here.
Joe, welcome to my life. He doesn't even, I set a date for the podcast, and he says, all right, sit in the room and I'll come in when I want to.
Oh my Lord.
I'll come in when I want to.
I built this room for you, Fast, and what did you do? You just left.
A death room.
You just left across.
He left 3,000 miles away, too. He didn't just leave. He didn't go to Queens from Brooklyn. He went all the way to California to get away from you. By the way, is this the lockout hair, Nick? Are you growing out the hair until we have a bargaining agreement in place? Is that what's going on?
It might actually turn into that. This was originally just for PL7, which launched a week ago. But it might be that. Once we get a finalized deal, then I'll cut my hair. We'll have an event for it. I think that's the way to go at this point.
I love it. I gotta say, I really want baseball to start, but now I'm kind of actually curious to see how long we can get this going here. Maybe just like a
watch no season now, right?
Rip Van Pollack. I want that.
Well, it's like when Jacob Degrom and Noah Syndergaard all had the long hair. Remember that phase where all pitchers had really super long hair a couple years ago? Nick Pollack's gonna start bringing that back. I love it.
It just goes out is the problem. It doesn't go down.
That was, believe it or not, once upon a time, many moons ago, that was also my problem. Mine grew up and out, so it had almost like a weird afro quality, if you could believe that, and not so much growing at all anymore. So if I were you, I would grow it to the nines, buddy. Just keep on growing it all the way. But what's so great about this is already the tone has been set, because I asked these two gentlemen to send me 5 names that Nick likes more than Alex, and vice versa, that Alex likes more than Nick, so we can debate them and then let everybody else decide, or me decide at the end of the day which argument is best. But when I got the list, the email read, this is from Alex Fast, guys I like more than Nick, and then the second group was, guys Nick is wrong about. And I thought
that I have to deal with
the tone of the show right there.
I'm so glad you noticed that, because I was proud of that one.
Nick Pollack, are you ready for the tone that Alex Fast has set here for this program today?
I mean, yes, I've been ready for 6 years or whatever it's been that we've done our podcast. It's what I have to deal with that you guys don't hear, that I have to edit out. It's nuts. I'm happy that you can be exposed to the man that Alex Fast truly is.
Well,
this is where I get to let loose.
I gotta tell you, nothing's getting edited out of this one. I don't care what happens. This is all staying in here. And again, you can follow the guys over on the Twitter machine at Alex Fast, and of course at Pitcher List. You can follow them as well. And please go over to Pitcher List and check out all the amazing content they've got going on there too. Just out of curiosity too, I know PitchCon is over, but are you still running the charity stuff too, Nick? Can people still donate?
Oh, absolutely can. At any point, y'all should be donating to Feeding America. It's just an incredible cause for a charity. And I also want to donate to at Alex Fast, because they will be getting a lot of donations. But it's Alex Fast 8 is where you'll find this wonderful
I forgot the 8 there for a second.
Right
I don't
here.
know what happened.
I think as long as you searched Alex Fast, hopefully I would come up. But now I'm curious to go
who are the other 7? That's what I want.
I know, right?
I started to say 8, and I went, wait a minute, isn't there a number in there? But I think, you know what happened? I think I just capitalized VP so big that the font just completely took over the 8. I don't know those other 7 Alex Fast, but they're crap. I can tell you they're no good at all.
I think it was Cal Ripken.
They're wonderful.
It's 8, by the way.
No, it's not. It was just 7 different versions of Alex, and this is the one that we want here on the show. All right, before we kick things off here with the player debates on the pitching preview, and there's some great names on this list you're going to want to hear about, I want to tell everybody about our cheat sheet creator at FantasyPros.com/draftwizard. We had just had an amazing meeting about all the new tools going on at the Draft Wizard. For free, you can go in there, run a 5x5 mock, but I'm telling you, when you upgrade to that premium product, it is unbelievable the things you can do. We're talking about you can hold over, draft picks from the year before. You can put players in spots that are taking up in keepers and run your mock draft simulations, stuff that blow your mind, right, to really get you prepared for the season. And then we took it a step further because the cheat sheet creator, basically you could pick your experts, like Alex Fast's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, or even 8. You could even pick Nick Pollack. You could pick Joe Pisapia. And every time we update our rankings, that cheat sheet that you have will update as well. You could use it during your mock drafts. You can use it for your real drafts when you sync up your league with Draft Wizard. And it's unbelievable what we have here at Fantasy Pros. I encourage everybody, especially yesterday, we had the meeting where we unrolled all the new stuff out there, and it's really exciting stuff that in terms of the tools, in terms of how it can help you prepare for your season. But the cheat sheet creator is just fantastic. And again, it's part of our draft simulator and the draft assistant tools. Both of them are going to help you prepare for the season. And you can get the Draft Wizard app over on iOS or on Apple. And you're able to get it on Android too. So it's an amazing opportunity here for you to get ready for your draft and start preparing. And also don't forget too, if you just can't get enough pitching, we got a new featured pros article at FantasyPros.com/MLB about some of these pitching pieces that maybe you want to target, maybe you want to avoid, maybe we think might be a bust, and some really good people involved in that as well. So you can check that out also at FantasyPros.com/MLB. All right, gentlemen, let's start here with a guy that Alex likes, and Alex likes Lance Lynn. So I'm going to give you the floor, Alex. Tell me why you like Lance Lynn so much and why Nick Pollack is wrong about him.
Oof, well, how much time do we have? Okay.
We've got about 50 minutes left.
50 minutes left. Okay, mate. So this is going to take some time. I want to start by quoting a really, really good article that I read about Lance Lynn not too long ago. Okay. And this is what the piece said. The piece said, quote, "For a guy who held a 2.69 ERA, a 28% strikeout rate, and a 1.07 whip, I'm pretty surprised he's not regarded a little better." Would you believe it, Joe? I'm going to give you one guess who wrote that article.
Who?
Nick Pollack. And here we are, and I got to tell this man, I got to read his words to him, okay? This man, Lance Lynn, with a minimum 1,000 thrown, he had the best fastball in all of baseball. It had a 255 WOBA, okay? This was the third best pitch in all of baseball. And these are all things that my esteemed colleague, Nick Pollack, pretends to know, okay, about Lance Lynn and his fantastic fastball, right? It had the best swinging strike rate among four-seamers, the fourth highest total in all of baseball, arguably the best fastball in baseball last year. He's very, very good at mitigating hard contact. I think one of the common arguments that we hear about him is like, yeah, but he doesn't really have that elite breaker, right? And yeah, I think you can make the case for that, but he does have one of the best cutters in baseball as well. It was, I think, top 5 in all of baseball last year, arguably the best if you increase the sample size, and it's been consistently good. Both of those pitches have been consistently good. That cutter had a 259 WOBA since 2008, which leads all of baseball. I mean, I think you can try and make a good argument that there are just 2 pitches for him, but there are other guys above Lance Lynn on his list that also just have 2 good pitches. And I think Lance Lynn, to quote my colleague, is just not getting the love that he should.
Wow, using his own words against him. And just for reference too, Lance Lynn right now over on Fantasy Pros in terms of ADP is the 17th pitcher going off the board. So if you go over to FantasyPros.com right now, you click that MLB tab, you can go look at the 2022 rankings, the ECR and the ADP. And I have traditionally been a very big Lance Lynn guy. He was one of my favorites going into this season. This is kind of harsh here because Fastest has basically used your own arguments to prove his point. So how do you get out of this one of not being as high on Lance Lynn as Fastest?
Did you say, Joe, that Lance Lynn was the 17th pitcher on Fantasy Pros?
He is the 17th pitcher off the board right now on Fantasy Pros. That is correct.
It's almost like I am favorable on Lance Lynn at my 13 rank on the site. Using my own words, he says, as I rank Lance Lynn above everybody else. But no, it's not far enough, he says. Not far enough. Well, Lance Lynn, this rank is not one that is negative, as you just showed, Joe. It's one that's positive. And, we have a whole landscape of pitchers. It's a relative rank. There are some other guys I felt just a little bit safer. We just had a guy, Lance Lynn, that dropped in his pitches per game about 10 last year, as we saw the innings per start go way down as well. That is very concerning for an older gentleman. I don't know if that's going to continue to improve or rebound in future years. I'm sorry, old. I know fast. You are 3 weeks older than me. I didn't mean to insult you so much. You said that his four-seamer was the best. It is the fourth best in swing strike rate. If you were able to read the PL7 pages well, which you should, it's right there in the thing. It says 17% swing strike rate. Come on. We all know Jacob Degrom's four-seamer did better than that. So it should have been an alarm bell for you. But I understand that, maybe didn't have a lot of time to prepare, or I get it. You just had to say arguments very quickly. I get it. But really, as you mentioned, 2 pitches as well. He's reduced the usage of that best fastball over the years, and I think there's a reason for that. I think overall he's finding he's just not doing everything that it used to do. It's a little concerning that there isn't much else to support him when that fastball continues to, not be what it used to be. So I still like him a lot. It might surprise you. He didn't throw 160 innings last year, did Lance Lynn. I hope we can see those 180 plus again. But everything is kind of pointing to the best days of Lance Lynn behind him. Is he still a rock for your teams? Absolutely. I like him more than the average at 13. But I can't push him much farther than that. I'm actually very surprised to hear that Alex Fast would want him higher than that.
Well, Alex Fast, where do you have him out of all fairness?
I don't have any rankings yet, so I can't even say.
Unreal. Which is what I'm dealing with,
which is what makes this so funny. But I want to
and you call yourself a vice president.
I know, right? I don't want to blame Nick, because I know it's tough to hear when you're wearing a literal mop on your head.
There it is.
But I did say that it was the best fastball when you raised the minimums to over 1,000. So it was more fastballs than Degrom, and then it was the best fastball in all of baseball if you raise the minimums. And to rebut his first rebuttal, I'm going to quote Nick's favorite band, Creed, and say, "Can you take me higher?"
Why would you do that? Why do you just want to lie? I mean,
wow. I encourage everyone who's listening to this podcast to watch it on the YouTube channel, because watching the facial expressions, watching Nick taking notes as Alex is talking, I'm trying to paint the picture of the visual, but I'm telling you, if you go over and subscribe to the YouTube channel again, it's not the regular ones, it's the MLB channel where the show is going to be. You have to watch this, because watching their reactions to each other is just unbelievably fun. Now, look, I know where Nick's coming from, because I'm a big Lance Lynn supporter, always have been. He goes out there, he throws innings, he throws quality innings. The second half, the ERA did go up to 3.66, still at a 5-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. That's the thing I keep coming back to. If you gave me a full 180 seasons in the American League of a 3.6 ERA and a 5-1 strike to walk ratio, I'm good with that. Like, I'm cool with that. But I get what Nick's saying, which is we have to start being a little bit leery of the 35-year-old age and, okay, what's going to happen here? I got to tell you, I'm going to go slightly, again, it's hard because Alex doesn't have his rankings up now, so I don't know how much further he wants to go here with Lance Lynn, but I think 13 is very reasonable. So because Nick has him at 13, I think 13 is reasonable. I'm going to have to give this first one to Nick Pollack, which, again, I don't like giving either of you credit, but it's going to be a tough day for me at the office regardless.
Joe, I got to say this right now. Last year we did this, left a bad taste in my mouth, because with Dan Harris, love the man, decided to side with Alex Fast in favor of Shohei Ohtani not being worth your time as a pitcher in a 12-teamer last year. And I have never forgotten that. I never thought I'd see the light of day of anyone from Fantasy Pros agreeing with me ever again. And
it's nice that we can bridge these gaps. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to rebuild all the bridges that Dan Harris burned. This is my lot in life. All right, let's go to the inverse here. Let's find one of Nick Pollack's guys. Let's talk about John Means here. John Means obviously had some really good moments last year, and then some really not so good moments. I know they've moved the left field fence now somewhere between 30 feet and Rhode Island. So between those two things, they moved it now. I'm just kind of curious, like, Where are you at now with John Means? Why do you think John Means is a guy people should invest in this year?
So I understand some concerns here. The 240 BABIP and the 80% left on base rate certainly aren't in John Means' favor. But what Alex will tell you all the time on the podcast is apparently John Means threw a perfect game last year. I don't know if this is true.
He did.
He claims it. I feel like there was maybe some error involved that prevented that from happening. But there is right in front of you the ceiling of John Means. And no, he's not going to likely have a 103 whip again, which was 15th in the majors last year among the top 200 starting pitchers and batters faced. He's still going to be incredibly excellent with a fastball that does not get burned, a phenomenal changeup, and a developing curveball and slider. And I actually see this season being an improved overall package from John Means, especially with that left field fence going farther away. That's a significant change. It dramatically shifts fly balls to left field and Camden yards for Orioles pitchers. I'm astounded once again that Mr. Oriole himself, who's naming his child Sidney Ponzone Fast, is against John Means, the first ace you have had in 30 years in Baltimore?
How dare you forget?
All right. I will not forget
Bedard.
Jimmy Key.
Yeah.
Jimmy Key was the one I'll give you. I know, Eric Bedard. See, this is what I have to deal with, everybody. John Means is essentially a volume guy, and I understand the concerns here. AL Beast, not a fun place. The win total not going to be an excellent thing to chase for John Means. Nevertheless, you give me a full season of John Means, which I think anyone should reasonably expect. You could hint at a double-digit win total. Striker rate 23%, that could get even better as he further develops the changeup and curveball. Not to mention the fastball velocity settled around 93 miles per hour. We've seen it go higher. I'm not going to rule out the opportunity that John Means could improve this season. 13% overall swing strike rate last year should get you excited. And I have him at a very reasonable place. Think about this. In 12 teamers, in the first 50 picks or so with a starter, when you're after that, you're not trying to get a guy that's just the entire year, SP3, SP4. That's when you should be taking chances of guys that could be that top 30, top 40 starter. John Means absolutely fits the bill, especially when he came out of the gate last year. Yes, he did go on the IL, but no one considered John Means outside of the top 50 starters before that stint. I think we could see a lot more of that again. And at 52 for me, that's exactly the place that you should be chasing John Means.
All right, so you've got him at 52. The consensus ADP has him at pitcher 56. Alex Fast, what are your concerns with John Means?
It's pretty reasonable.
So the consensus, listen, the people are already on my side, and that's all I need to sleep at night. You understand? Okay. Now I want to break down some of the lies that have just been told to these people. All right. And let's just break them down systematically one by one. Yes, John Means did throw a perfect game.
No.
You can't convince me otherwise. 2, does that mean, okay, let's take a step back here for a second. A guy throws a perfect game and all of a sudden he's got a high upside. Let me just go ahead and point you to Armando Galaraga's 4.78 career ERA. Okay,
just because he didn't.
I'm
going to stop. I'm sorry. I will be respectful.
He's getting defensive, Joe. Okay. Number 2.
Don't make me hold you in contempt of podcast. That's
I apologize.
That is the lamest contempt of all the contempts I can hold someone.
Contempt of cast. The other thing, I worry about that velocity because it's been inconsistent. And any time that we've seen him ramp up that velocity to 95, 96, it hasn't come with good results. He hasn't been able to show that he can stick with it and then keep the command of the fastball when he does have that too. Yes, there's a very valid argument to be made that moving the fences back 30 feet are going to suppress some of those home runs. For me, it's unless they move it back to Rhode Island, like you said, you're going to have a difficult time suppressing a lot of those home runs because they went a little bit farther than those 30 feet would suggest. But I think at the end of the day, if we're breaking down the 5 categories of what's going to try and win you a week in fantasy or in a roto league, it doesn't necessarily paint a pretty picture. My opponent, Nick, already admitted that, yeah, maybe the ceiling maybe is double-digit wins. Okay, maybe. Don't know if an Orioles team that, isn't necessarily supporting the best roster in all of baseball right now is going to be able to get John Means more than 10 wins, let alone win 10 wins overall. But hey, who knows? Maybe Rougned Odor is finally going to pull it together. The other point I wanted to make too, so we can knock wins off. We're not going to get wins from him. Probably not going to get innings because the highest innings pitch total that we've seen from John Means in his career is 155, and he didn't do it last year. He ended up at 146. Okay, so probably not going to get you more than 160. Never had a K rate over 24%. He's not going to get you 200 Ks. Maybe he can get you a mid-3 ERA. Maybe he's done it once. Probably going to be around 4. So that's not really doing you wonders. So the one thing he's going to get you is whip. We're talking about upside here in the 50s. You want to be getting a guy in the 50s whose high upside is 10 wins, a mid-3 ERA, and under 200 strikeouts? No thanks. Not for me.
Wait. Hold on a second. So the fact that you're saying a mid-3s ERA is not an upside that you want at the 52nd pick, not to mention, you also said 94 when he throws hard with his fastball, he doesn't do well. In 2020, when he averaged a 94 mile per hour fastball, the average on that pitch, 151. X average, 143. Yeah, clearly he's a lot better with it. The swing striker in that 14%, which is over 3 ticks higher than the one he had in 2021. There is clearly a ceiling together. And just because, you throw a perfect game and you have upside doesn't always mean that, because Galaraga didn't do it, doesn't mean that he doesn't have it. Just because he didn't hit his potential doesn't mean everyone else isn't because they threw a perfect game. I mean, I don't
in the best interest of baseball, I don't think
That's
we can donate
silly.
any more time to John Means. I think we've said all that can be said here about these two guys. I'm going to throw out this. First half, 2.28 ERA. He was dazzling in the first half. Then the injury, then also the the sticky stuff potentially too. I don't know about you guys. I am pretty clear about how many times he goes to the glove and what he was doing with the glove. You don't have to tell me twice. I mean, and I got no problem with it. I got no beef with it. But once everybody started cracking down, that ERA went to 4.88 in the second half. That 4.88 terrifies me, not to mention now I understand too, you can look at it and say, well, look how good he was on the road, 2.84 ERA, 4.64 ERA at home. So maybe if you do fix the home territory a little bit, good things can happen. But I got to tell you, in the 50s, when I can take shots on guys like Kopech and Clevenger and guys to maybe the quality of the innings they can give me are much higher, I think I'll take that over the quantity of John Means. So give it 1-1 here, Alex Fast. And I'm not doing this just to make it fun, but
Sounds
it is
like
tied.
you are.
I'm just saying. It is tied. This is the order that they were given to me. Again, I was very transparent. Even how the email was sent, I was transparent about this. So nothing but transparency here. Speaking of transparency, let's look at the MRI of Shane Bieber's elbow and let's talk about him. Shane Bieber right now. Alex Fast, you are a fan. Nick Pollack, you don't think is enough of a fan. Tell us why.
Yeah, and I think maybe we should agree too that you're right, Joe. In the interest of time, 1-1. We can't do rebuttals to rebuttals, Nick. We have to keep it streamlined.
You can't handle my
John
rebuttals.
Means, at least.
Yeah, not about John Means.
Why not John Means? He's a wonderful man.
All right. Well, it's 1-1. I heard some really great feedback from Eno on a recent podcast of Rates and Barrels that one of the issues that I think we're going to point to a little bit later on with Nick's rebuttal is the command. And he came back with 2 starts and didn't have great command. And I wanted to point out that these were actually Bieber's first 2 starts without the sticky stuff. This is the very first time that he had come back and thrown the ball without the sticky stuff. So that could theoretically be an adjustment that he made. To get into the injury concerns too, there was a really great article by Nick Cevalle. I don't remember where exactly it was, breaking down the extent of Bieber's injury and why it is not as worrisome. He's like a physical therapist, got a bunch of degrees that makes him far smarter than me. Reading that article really led me to believe that I'm not too concerned about the injury moving forward. I also want to point out the fact that the fastball in his final 2 starts still had a 50% zone rate and was maybe a tick below. Yes, Nick did a very good breakdown on YouTube of that start where he, by the way, still had his breaking pitches and made Salvador Perez look absolutely silly. Don't lie. I'm quoting your piece. No, not just one, Nick. Not just one, Nick. We're talking about multiple. Okay. We're talking about multiple. So I think I'm just not as concerned. I think he needs to be able to come back and show. Oh, the last thing I wanted to bring up about the command. Yeah, maybe it seemed a little errant, even though he had a 50% zone rate in those final 2 starts and gave up 1 earned run and struck out 4 over 6 innings, combined 2 starts. But he was also throwing 90-91. why is he going to come back and throw 94, 95 for a team that isn't going to be making the playoffs? And as a result, if he's throwing a little bit less, then yeah, it makes sense that he's not going to have that same feel for that fastball. Also, when have we ever taken 37 pitches worth of data and made an entire assessment about a guy? I just don't think that we could do that. To me, I'm not as
Steven
concerned about Shane
Strasburg
Bieber moving forward.
Oh, sorry. I thought it was an actual question.
Yeah,
I didn't realize it was rhetorical. I remember that night against the Pittsburgh Pirates, and I'm pretty sure he was in the Hall of Fame about the second inning. I'm pretty sure.
That's
I just
true.
want to say.
That's a very good point. And that proves my point. So with that said, I'll hand it over to Nick for more lies.
All right, Nick Pollack. Shane Bieber right now is being drafted as an ace again. So the confidence level, pitcher number 8 overall, right after Jacob Degrom right now in terms of ADP. They're very close. So I guess that's the real question. You're either confident about drafting him as an ace or you're not. So where do you fall in this?
So a couple things very quickly here. I want to establish that command is not control. As Fast tried to talk about zone rate as an indication of command, it is not. If you watch that video, if you actually watched it, you'll see that yes, Bieber did make some good pitches, but if you know the story of Shane Bieber, it's rooted in fastball command as he works around the zone and sneaks that in because it's not overall a good fastball. It's actually one that does get hit hard. Actually got hit really hard before the injury last year where we were already concerned about Shane Bieber. But you'll know that it's about the command of the fastball and then that sets up the breaking stuff. He did throw, I think it was 1, maybe 2 to Salvi Perez. But the overall performance, it was pain. It was rough to watch this man. And no, I'm not going to say that Shane Bieber should be defined in 2022 based on these 2 outings. What I will say is that it's not something like Pablo Lopez, who came back on that final Sunday after having a rotator cuff injury. And what did he do? He threw harder than he did all season long. And that's a positive in that book. Maybe you can make the argument saying, you know what, there's no negatives to apply, only positives. Still, I would have liked to have seen some sort of indication that not only was Bieber all right with his command again, but better than it was before the injury. Because I think a lot of people are forgetting that Shane Bieber wasn't a top 3 pitcher when he was injured. He had a high whip at that point because his fastball command wasn't good then. It was already struggling. Then you throw in the sticky stuff that we've been talking about, and hopefully he's fine and calibrated. If you're going to knock it for John Means, I don't know why you wouldn't knock it for Shane Bieber. And
well, I will answer that question. Hold on, wait. I will answer that question. The judge will answer that question, and the judge will tell you when John Means has a run anywhere close as the high end of what Shane Bieber's done for an extended period of time, then we can have that conversation.
No,
but I mean,
I
if you
guess
go back to April, 42 innings in April, a guy gave up 28 hits, for God's sake, struck out 68 guys, 14 walks. Shane Bieber looked a lot like Shane Bieber in April, and then obviously we've compounded numerous issues there. So I think the difference is also you're out making a huge investment. So if you want to take that part of the argument, Pollack, I think you can, which is, hey, if you're going to take a chance on somebody you're unsure about, take him at 50 instead of 8.
Well, I'm trying. Yeah, right. That is the next point I'm saying is that I have him at 11, which I think is very fair considering that if you're going after a starter in the first 2-3 rounds, you want something that's safe and you don't have any sort of concerns over. The point about John Means and the sticky stuff is that John Means, you're saying, when sticky stuff performed well, then after the sticky stuff didn't perform as well. And if we're saying that Shane Bieber is someone that we thought heavily about sticky stuff with, we're really curious to see, and he got injured right before that moment. There's still some haze. Maybe he's totally fine. But I guess my whole point here is that Shane Bieber is a man filled with haze that we just don't really see clearly as to who he's going to be. And I don't want to feel that way when I have a lot of definitive starters that I'm like, yeah, this guy is clearly good and fantastic. And don't forget, Shane Bieber was allowing a ton of hits with that bad fastball command. Tons of strikeouts. Fantastic. I'm not saying anything bad about that. That's why he's my 11th. But the command isn't quite as pristine, and the days of him being a top 3, top 5 starter doesn't look clear if that fastball command isn't there.
All right, fair enough. Interesting points here. Look, the top tier of starting pitcher is riddled with question marks. Jacob Degrom, Shane Bieber. If I'm going to take a shot on somebody, I'm going to take a shot on the guy who's 27 and hope for the best. So at the end of the day, it's win or go home in some of these important leagues. So I'm going to go with the still believing in Bieber. So I'm going to give that one to our friend Alex Fast here. So there you go.
I thought Dan Harris had left. I didn't realize he was still here.
Dan Harrison.
I also
Listen,
love
pal.
that. I have
my glasses over there. I could put them on for you and do the whole bit. But
I have
miss
no
him
rankings, so it makes it a little bit easier
I know.
for me.
Yeah, the fact that you have no rankings coming into the show This is what I say.
Watch like Bieber's gonna be at 12 or something, and
you're gonna have him. Yeah, that's the whole point. All right, let's move on to the next one here. Let's move on to John Gray, who Nick feels like might be able to perhaps make the most of here, an opportunity to get out of Colorado and all of a sudden in Texas really get another shot at becoming, the pitcher that people thought he would be. I mean, remember how excited everybody was when he got drafted? This guy is a can't-miss pitching prospect, but, Colorado's a tough place to go pitch. So, Nick, Pollack, give us your 2 cents about why people should be drafting John Gray this year.
So, I really want to go back to the point I made before about Means talking about how you should be structuring your draft and not thinking like a best ball league. Right? This isn't, you're not in a league where you draft a guy and then you hold him for the entire year. If you look back at your leagues, let's say you're in a 23-round team, consider how many players after the 15th round that you actually held on to through the season. I preach endlessly. You should be drafting your team with the anticipation that you are going to be swapping a lot of these guys out. And at the end of these drafts, right now, John Gray is someone you should be heavily considering to see what he looks like in April. There are a lot of things that we really liked last season, even when he was inside of Coors, like increased velocity to 96 plus in the middle of July. Now that he's out of Coors, he's in an amazing pitcher's park in Texas, where they are just going to let him toss all the pitches that he wants. I think it's such a great situation for a guy that constantly has had excellent strikeout rates near 25%, has a fastball velocity that held about 95, and he could actually be that 96 again. A phenomenal slider that he throws a third of the time, that held batters to a 154 average last year, inside of Coors included, in an X average of 165, 35% CSW on that. I think this is the perfect time to go after John Gray. Now, I have him at 60. I'm not saying that he is destined to be an SP3, SP4. What I am saying is that he's exactly the guy you should be getting at the end of your drafts. And I don't really see any argument against that. The Fast could bring his way.
All right, Fast. The gauntlet's been thrown down, so bring the argument.
Well, I think there's a few things. One, there's no foundational fastball for John.
His argument is just disdain. That's what it is right now.
There's a few things. It's easy for us to be like, okay, well, he's coming out of Coors and therefore he can theoretically improve. So I think one of the ways that we can combat that is by taking a look at one of the pitches that would theoretically be most impacted in that move, and that's his four-seamer. I don't genuinely believe that the four-seamer that he has the movement profile enough to be successful in and out of Coors. You brought up the increased velocity, so let's take a look at how it did last year in that time. He had a 369 WOBA on his four-seamer overall. He increases the velocity in July. What does he do? He has a 355 WOBA overall. It doesn't matter. The increased velocity just meant it left the yard just as quick. I don't really believe that the stuff is there. I think the slider's fine. So now we're talking about a guy with a not good fastball, a middling slider, and Jeff Zimmerman inside of Saris's piece did this really interesting thing where he's looking at projected IL, right? He's taking all of the past data and seeing how many days theoretically this player is going to be on the IL this year. And guess what? His is way above average. Or I don't want to say way. That's a little bit of hyperbole. It's above average. So now we're talking about a guy who's projected to spend about 32 days on the IL. So miss a little over a month of games, has an okay fastball on a team that's probably, maybe could get him some wins. So yeah, I just don't think there's a lot of fun, exciting upside there.
No cheating. Answer this question for me, both of you. All right. It's quiz time. No cheating. Does John Gray have a better career ERA in Coors or away from Coors?
It's away.
It's a 50-50 shot.
It's in Coors.
In Coors.
Correct. His ERA is 4.54 in Coors as opposed to 4.65 away, which is very interesting. However, Nick Pollack, you don't have to work too much harder for this one, because I think baseball is not all just numbers. I think a lot of it's psychological too. And I think just a different voice in the head of a guy who's still young enough that I'm curious to find out if there's anything left in this tank. Sometimes a different voice, sometimes a different approach. Just getting out of Coors from a mental standpoint, I think, could go a very long way in a fresh start. He's only 30, and I say only 30 because I think at this point in time, we look at some of these pitchers that we've seen pitch well into their 30s now. He is more built for that kind of thing physically as well. I mean, this was a guy, people forget, it's this guy's 6'4", 220 kind of guy. This is a big dog. And I think, let's talk about the frame of the pitcher. Let's talk about the fact that, yes, I understand the potential of missing time and all that, but he did make 29 starts last year. The year before that, it was 26. Year before that, 31. And I think making those starts in cores is tough when you got to go out there and the altitude and all those things. So I'm going to tell you this. I think where he's going right now, which is a free square, there's really no argument against not going to find out. I mean, he's going around the same spot, number 76, as John Gray, Jesus Luzardo, Steven Strasburg, Steven Matz. So you could take the Steven Matz, and it's a very safe thing, and I think you know what you're getting. So I'll ask both of you this. Would you rather have Steven Matz or John Gray? Pollack, who would you rather have?
Absolutely, John Gray. Chase higher stuff. It's a 12-teamer. You don't need to go after it and settle for Steven Matz.
All right, how about you, Alex Fast? Would you rather have boring old Steven Matz, or would you have maybe just a little upside of John Gray?
Gray. Yeah, I'd go with Gray.
All right, so John Gray it is. We are now 2 for 2. I remember getting into a huge Twitter argument with somebody when they tried to tell me Mark Appel was a better pitching prospect than John Gray. And I believe that went pretty south. Not that John Gray has been great, but I was steadfast about, I don't know who you're watching, but I'm watching John Gray pitch, and I can tell you right now, if I'm going to invest in one guy, it's going to be that one as the number 1 overall pick. I wonder what Mark Appel is doing right now. Him and Sidney Ponson are probably on some sort of podcast together, I guess, somewhere. I don't know where. Let's talk a little bit about our next guy, which is Marcus Stroman, who is actually a player that Alex, last time you were on the show, I believe, we chatted about being one of these good late value guys, despite the fact he's pitching for the Cubs now. And we think the Cubs are obviously a team that's rebuilding, retooling, whatever the hell you want to call it. What is it about Marcus Stroman do you think is worth investing in that you think maybe Nick Pollack is taking for granted?
Well, I just want to know what it takes to please Nick. You know what I mean? I just want to know what it makes, what it takes to make dad happy. Because right now, he's just one of those dads screaming.
Are we having a cats in the cradle moment on this podcast right now? Like, I don't understand.
Exactly. So let me read off some of these attributes.
When you're coming home, Nick, I don't know when. We'll do some stats then, son. We'll have a good podcast then.
Nice. I just don't know what I'm supposed to do, Fast. It doesn't matter how much.
I think you're just supposed to hug him. I think he just wants to be hugged at this point. I don't know.
I don't think you.
He's too far away.
You can ask that same question to Marcus Stroman because he did it and you still don't love him. So last year, he puts up a 3.02 ERA over 179 innings pitched. It's a career best. You still don't love him. He continues to have a career of never having a FIP above 4. He's capable of throwing 180 to 200 innings pitched. He improves his strikeout rate. He brings it up to 22% with a career high 11.6% swinging strike rate. He continues to have a very good walk rate and a career low 1.15 whip, or at least near career low 1.15 whip. I think you can make an argument that the strikeout rate is not a fluke, right? This is a guy coming in with a sort of revamped changeup splitter combination that's probably going to stick around. So theoretically, there could even be another gear there for him. And we're talking about 22 to 23% K rate. That competition, everyone wants to make a big deal about the fact that he went to the Cubs, right? Okay. Well, the competition actually just got easier for him. You know how many teams in the NL Central finished with a WOBA in the top 15? One! Just one! All the other ones, not great, Bob. They're right down there in the bottom 10. So arguably, his competition just got much easier. So let's take a step back. We're talking about a guy, 200 innings, solid ratios. He's not going to get you 200 Ks, but he can get you 160 to 170. He can get you a few wins because he's facing teams that aren't that great. What are we talking about here, friends? Let's have some fun and win some leagues.
It's a good argument there. What do you have to say about that, Nick Pollack?
Alex Fast certainly sounds like someone who has yet to make his own ranks, because not once has he mentioned anyone else in this. He's not talking about a ranking as a relative term, which it is. When ranking Marcus Stroman, it's really hard because it's like, okay, if I'm going to take Marcus Stroman, that means I'm not taking these other guys. And I really don't understand who you're pushing Marcus Stroman above in my rankings. Is it Framber Valdez? Is it Ian Anderson? Chris Bassett? I'm at a loss here for what you actually think here with Stroman for a guy that last year whip all of a sudden came so far down to 115. I'm really surprised by you, Fast, all of a sudden thinking, because the past happened, the future will be the same suddenly. Mm-hmm. And 131 whip in 2019. And what happened? Normally you're thinking, the hit per 9 went down from about a 9 to an 8. And guess what? His hard contact allowed per plate appearance went way up, 4 ticks to near 30%. His ranks 151 in the majors among starters. That's terrible. And I don't, I'm not going to say that the Cubs defense is bad, but it's not the Cardinals. It's not a scenario where you think, oh, despite all the hard contact, they're going to bail him out a ton. And yes, it is a high ground ball rate, 23rd in the majors last year at 53%. Not the absurd elite top 5, though. It's 53. It's good. It's nice. But it's not this situation where I think that Stroman is going to be able to maintain this 115 whip. The ERA absolutely is going to be better than the waiver wire. Sure, I have inside the top 50. I have higher than John Means. But the 21 to 22% strikeout rate, you're saying, oh, that's very good. 107th, though, among starters. This is below where I am ranking him at 48. The volume is nice. He should have that. That's a big positive. To me, if you're getting Stroman, you're getting him because you were concerned about, say, some volume or a little bit of your ERA earlier in the draft, but you are taking a chance on the whip here being at 125 or worse, while the strikeouts won't necessarily be the same as someone else with the same volume. And the Cubs, I mean, are they also going to get a ton of wins, which maybe be a little bit more than John Means? And I do have Stroman slightly higher ranked than John Means, but it's not like you're going to get 14 or 15 wins out of this likely. And it just, to me, is so close to the waiver wire production. It's better, but it's not. He's not going to be barreling ahead of it, and that makes me a little hesitant to go for Stroman in drafts. But honestly, I thought I had a very fair ranking fast, and I really would want to know at what number you would have Stroman if you were doing your ranks.
Well, right now Stroman is pitcher number 51 on the board.
I'm more favorable.
And you are more favorable than the average ADP of him. So you like him a little bit more than that. So I'll give you a couple of the names ahead, which are, again, some names that I know Alex likes from previous conversations. Ahead of him, Clevenger, Sonny Gray, Eduardo Rodriguez, Logan Gilbert. Do you agree with that, Alex Fast?
I would take Stroman over those guys, and I think Nick would too.
There are a couple of them. Yeah, there are. I think Logan Gilbert's slightly below. So I don't see how this is. I don't know what Fast is upset about here.
Oh, I think what he's upset about is you're missing. I'm going to say this. I think that the one thing, Alex, you missed from your argument is that when you're getting this deep into pitching, it's kind of nice to have somebody that you can actually have in your rotation every week. And that's one thing. Stroman's durability, I think we've got to talk about that. 2016, 32 starts. 2017, 33 starts. 18, obviously the injury, did not play in 2020 in the shortened season. 2020 didn't play in the shortened season, but 2019, 32 starts. 2021, 33 starts. This guy's going out there and taking the ball every fifth day, and you are 100% correct that part of the reason why he is ranked where he is, Nick, is because of that whip and, probably a lot closer to the 1.3 range than the 1.14 from last year. But I'm looking at, do I know what I'm getting out of Stroman? I think I do, and I think I accept that, and I understand however you're constructing your roster, if you're going to look at it and say, you know what, I've taken some chances with the Shane Biebers of the world early. I could use a guy like Stroman that I know is going to take the ball every fifth day, or I've really locked in a guys that I really feel really good in those first couple of spots that I can, all of a sudden take a chance on a guy like a Kopech there, or on a guy, like a Clevenger there instead. And I think it comes down to, at the end of the day, do we value durability as an ability? And the answer is yes. So the answer is Marcus Stroman is good. I want Marcus Stroman. So there you go. So that's another one here. It is.
Wait.
You love him, but not enough.
Your Honor.
You love him, but not enough. You knocked him too much.
No clarifications. Yeah. I win.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want this to be clear here, Joe. Are you saying that I should be having Marcus Stroman above Nathan Eovaldi, Framber Valdez, Ian Anderson, and Chris Bassett? Because that's where Stroman is.
Not over Framber Valdez.
Okay.
Eovaldi, we can have that conversation because Eovaldi's another one who's been all over them. You want to talk about missing games, too, in his careir. But you can certainly talk about that. I know he made 32 starts last year, but just saying. That's
I want to understand... to Fast, if this is me versus Fast here.
Well, but here you go. Chris Bassett, statistically speaking, hold on.
I feel like I just won.
Chris Bassett is kind of close to Marcus Stroman theoretically, except Stroman's doing it every single year, and Chris Bassett's making 27 starts, 28 starts. The other guy's making 33 starts every year. I think that matters a little bit, don't you?
Yeah. So would you have Bassett above Stroman Fast?
Would I have Bassett? No.
Right. Okay. So. I'm trying to figure out where I'm wrong here.
I don't know if you're
above Eovaldi. Above Eovaldi.
Well, that's what Fast called it. And this is where Nick is wrong. So where am I wrong, Fast?
It's true. In those terms, you're not wrong. But I think you should love him more than you do. let's start a love fest about Huascar Ynoa. Go ahead, Nick Pollack. Go ahead, take the stage here.
I don't know how I'm supposed to argue right now. I apologize. I'm a little.
It's tough to
don't
lose.
let don't
okay.
Up to be a loser.
It's unreal. Okay.
Don't let him get in your head. Come on now, Buck. Bear down. You're the president of Pitcher List. Bear down here.
Free.
Rent
free.
Rent free.
This is unbelievable. Come on,
Huascar
Ynoa to me is here's the statement that probably Fast is prepared to say if he prepared anything.
You know me.
Is that Huascar Ynoa had a wonderful 2 months, and then he slammed his hand into a bench, and then he wasn't the same after, and he wasn't very good for that. You might be surprised to know that, say, for a 7 earned run start for Huascar Ynoa last year, still a sub-4 ERA, an excellent elite whip, and an elite strikeout rate. His skills are still there. It's exactly what he is, a guy who throws 96 to 97 with an absolutely elite slider. And Atlanta's going to use him as their number 4. He is going to be there the entire season in that rotation with an elite strikeout rate and a whip that is proven to be very helpful for your team. The only question is if the ERA will be beneficial or not. I like to believe that he is more of that first half self, and of course, say for that 7 earned run blow up, which I understand there are some pitchers, they say, oh, you remove the one blow up and it's different. But it gives the illusion that he was all of a sudden horrendous in that second half when he returned, and that was not the case. I have Huascar Ynoa in the early 50s. Same idea I was talking about with John Means, where you are chasing a guy that can actually give you consistent top 30, top 40 production, and you don't want to settle for your Steven Matz. You actually are going to find guys like Carlos Rodon and Robbie Ray and Adam Wainwright, etc., on the waiver wire over a dozen, 2 dozen of those opportunities. If you settle for someone basic, then you're not going to have a chance to hit on any of those, and you have to be doing that. So Huascar Ynoa is exactly the guy you should be going for. See if he hits, ride that strikeout rate, especially where he's going right now, around 250 or so in drafts. And if it doesn't work in the first week or two, fine. Now you have a chance to go and find that top 10, top 20 pitcher like those guys were last year. So Ynoa is exactly the kind of guy you want to go with.
The consensus for Ynoa, by the way, is pitcher 92 right now in terms of when you take CBS,
value.
Yahoo. Now, NFBC, you're right. He's going at 240 overall, whereas overall in the consensus on Fantasy Pros, and this is why Fantasy Pros is a great tool site, because you can obviously see these things and find these variances and say, this guy's a value. He's being undervalued in the market. 325 overall in the consensus right now in the early draft. So a huge difference there. Now, Alex Fast, I don't want to blow up your spot here, but was kind of one of your value guys you talked about last time. So I feel like you kind of pinned yourself into a corner with this one. I don't know how you get out of this.
Oh, baby, I can get out of corners. I would like to point out the fact that I was so shocked and appalled by Nick's argument that my video feed went out. My internet said, I can't process this much lies at the same time. All right. For Ynoa, listen, yeah, I did say he's a value because 325, as you mentioned, or where he is currently at in the ADP, is, I think, a bridge too far. That's a little bit too low for me. I think there is enough value there. We're saying his outside the top 300 players drafted could be a little bit much. However, we're talking about a guy who is Nick's 51st pitcher on his list right now, right? Now, my rankings are perfect. I won't say what they are, but they're perfect. And
because they're imaginary.
Because they're imaginary. And
he has the best rankings, Nick.
we need to, I've got the best rankings. We need to find that middle ground, right? That's kind of what I'm talking about. Huascar Ynoa is a guy who, I think we didn't bring up the fact, didn't even make the playoff roster because of the shoulder injury that he was dealing with, right? That we haven't been able to get any single updates. He is a guy who theoretically has one pitch in his arsenal and his slider, and that's all that he goes to. He is a reliever in many ways. No, the fastball isn't really that great. The slider's elite. The slider's really elite, but he's also never even thrown over 100 innings, I think, at any point in his career. He's never thrown 100 innings at one level, and the most he's ever thrown is 120, right? That's a guy, so you're talking about 50. So that's right around Marcus Stroman. So now we're going from a guy who's guaranteeing you about like 180, 51. You're ahead of John Means, by the way, ahead of John Means, a guy who is giving you 100 to 110 innings, and then relying on the fact that his slider is still going to be able to get you an ERA under 4. That's not a person that could theoretically help your team at that spot. You want to take a flyer on him at the end of of your draft at pick, after 270, that's totally fine for me. But there is a lot of things that can go wrong and not a lot of safety there with that pick. And if you're taking him at 50, that can actively hurt you.
All right, Alex, I got to be honest with you, man. You backed yourself into a corner here with this one. And you talking about all the lies. If you go back to 2018, at 116 innings pitched to combine between low and high A ball. I did just research that. And in all fairness, he was one of your guys last week when we talked that you really liked. So this is a KO on the Nick Pollack side. Wow. I'm sorry. Nick Pollack gets this one completely because there's so much upside. And even if he's going it in the NFBC world at 250, we all know between him breaking the hand, between incomplete, between him being young and people not knowing, that fear of the unknown a little bit with him, that they think it's a volatile stock. We all know in real drafts, when you get to those CBS, Yahoo draft kind of places, that ADP is going to be lower than it should be, and I think that's going to make him a huge value. But go ahead, Alex. You can throw your 2 cents of why I'm right again.
I just said he's never done 100 at one level of ball and was 120 across.
Well, low A
seems like
and
the sequel
A.
stat.
I mean, it's kind of the same. I mean,
never done more than 120 across all is what I was saying. He'd never done more than 120.
Well,
and you proved my point. 116. He's never hit more than
low
120.
A and high A is.
I'm just gonna say quickly, the
A.
emphasis of innings is not the point here because you again are not drafting a best ball team. You don't care about the full volume of the year. And hey, that's to rule out the chance that he goes higher than that, which he could. Is also great.
Well,
too,
even if he had a 50 increase, 140 something innings this year at that rate, if they're quality or even middling, I think you'd take it at that ADP.
Absolutely.
All right, let's go to another name here. Let's go to one of your guys. Let's see if you can bounce back here, Alex Fast. Aaron Cevalle. You've got a lot of guys on your list here from the Guardian. So tell me about Aaron Cevalle, why people should be reinvesting in him, and why Nick Pollack is wrong when it comes to his thoughts.
I was really excited for Aaron Cevalle coming into the 2021 season, and yeah, it didn't pan out in terms of the innings, but it actually panned out okay in terms of the ratios in the ERA, right? Yeah, the 20% K rate isn't fantastic, but the 1.2 whip is, and so is the 3.84 ERA. I talked a little bit earlier about Lance Lynn's cutter being one of the best cutters in baseball. Well, guess who did have the best cutter in all of baseball among starting pitchers last year who meet a realistic threshold? That was Aaron Cevalle. Okay. Yeah. The sinker 4-seamer mix isn't great, but the curveball is really, really good. I believe Nick Pollack brings it up in his own quote about Aaron Cevalle inside of that piece. So now we're talking about a guy who's got a cutter curveball combination that can be really, really good. You can talk about the 4-seamer not being great, and that's totally valid. But if you look at the difference between 2020 and 2021, we saw a guy who realized, you know what, my sinker isn't necessarily working. I'm going to drop it down. And what am I going to do? I'm going to take my best pitch in my cutter and I'm going to throw it a little bit more. And that's exactly what he did. This is a young guy in an elite pitching system who is constantly getting the best out of young pitchers. He has a very good arsenal to work with, a very good curveball cutter combination that he can continue to work with, along with a splitter that, while it didn't perform well in terms of batted ball, got a really good amount of swing and miss to it, along with another slider that he could work with. I think there's enough in that arsenal that he can take steps forward with the K rate, take steps forward with the swinging strike rate. And remember, last year was a little bit of a regression from what he did in 2021. So it's not unrealistic to say, okay, he can get back to a 22, 23, 24% K rate guy. So now we're talking about wins, good ERA, good whip with a 24% K rate. So that's kind of Marcus Stroman. And maybe he doesn't have the same amount of innings pitched, but he still theoretically could because he's young. But he's going, what, 50, 60, 70 picks below Marcus Stroman? There's some nice upside there to get late in your draft, especially if there's a lot of risk early on.
All right, Aaron Cevalle, Nick, why should people be a little bit more concerned about him?
Nothing would make me happier.
Nothing makes him happy.
I was going to say.
Just like Marcus Stroman.
Be careful there. Nothing makes you happy. You walked right into that one. I mean, this whole daddy issue
this doesn't make
episode
me
that Alex
happy
has
at all.
with you. No.
Nothing would make me happier than Aaron Cevalle being amazing this year. And yeah, as Fast said, there's a lot to like inside of the curveball and cutter, but he only used it about 40% of the time last year. And I think a lot of stuff is failing. Now, however, in September, he did try to up its usage together. It's closer to 50%. So what happened? On September 12th, he allows 5 earned runs in 3 innings. On September 23rd, he allows 7 earned runs in 1 inning and 2/3. And on September 28th, he allows 4 earned runs in 5.1. It's not there yet. I do think that there is a future where if Sivali's throwing more than a 16% curveball, then maybe he can actually expound and be more of a consistent starter. But you can say, look, Nick, over the entire year, 3.84 ERA, 112 whip, 20% K rate over 124 innings. What I see here is exactly what I'm talking about before, where maybe Sivali can break through this. But as of now, he's not in a position where you should be drafting him in 12-teamers. It's just not it. If you want it at the very end, maybe for the first week or two, see like, hey, I need a start or two, fine. But you should be putting yourself in a position where you can be chasing much higher ceilings than Sivali right now. It's too much of an ask to say that he's going to throw more curveballs and cutters and have them be as effective as we need them to be, because the fastballs are just getting hit too hard. Everything else he throws in their splitter and a slider, not good enough. 20% strikeout rate last year, 127th overall across starters last year. It's just not enough at the moment. And in your 12-teamers, you should just be trying to chase something else.
I like Aaron Cevalle because he's a pitcher. You know, one of those throwback guys that actually isn't relying on trying to blow you away with 98-mile-an-hour fastball stuff, and I respect that. And I'd like to see more guys be like that. So as a pitcher, big fan. As a fantasy pitcher, though, I think to a certain extent, you are who you are already, and the minor league track record tells us this, because if you look at the strikeout per nine, 7.5 in the major leagues so far over, how many innings? 250 innings or so. In the minor leagues, 7.5. If he had another gear, I feel like we might have seen it by now. And if he was pitching on an elite team that you knew he was a lock to get 15, 16 wins, okay. I think Cleveland's going to be a good team. I wouldn't call them an elite team. If he was pitching on the White Sox, I might feel a little bit differently about Aaron Cevalle. I'd be like, yeah, I want that guy, definitely. I think he's just going to be a ton of wins, lots of quality starts, let's go. But at the end of the day, I don't see that other gear for Cevalle, which makes me sad because I like guys who actually pitch from the mound instead of just throw. So I'm going to give that one to Nick Pollack. There you go. So now we are tied here, I believe, is the board as I'm looking at it. Actually, no. Nick is up by 1 right now. So Alec Manoa is the next guy on the list that I want to talk about, because I know we're running up against it. So let's see if Nick Pollack can make a case for Alec Manoa to be investable this year, and what Alex Fast has to say about that. Go ahead, Nick.
Oh, I could not be more excited about Alec Manoa. I know that he's in Toronto. It's not necessarily the best place you want to pitch, and yet he pitched not just in Toronto, but Dunedin and in Buffalo. And what did he do? A 3.22 ERA with a 105 whip, a 28% strikeout rate, and with the 5th best hard contact level plate appearance. Essentially, this is the best metric to look at how he's allowing contact. 5th best in the majors among starters, 19%, incredibly low, elite. And it's because of a four-seamer and slider that are both just exceptional pitches. Four-seamer last year had a 17% swing strike rate. Guess who's lower on that? Lance Lynn. Lance Lynn had a 17%, 17.1 for Alec Manoa's four-seamer last year. So he's 3rd in the majors, just so you know, Fast, in case you forgot about this. We also have a slider that was just absurdly filthy. 146 batting average allowed, 160 X average, 33% CSW. It was impossible to 12% hard hit per plate appearance on that one. Insanely good. And he doesn't need much else. You know, yes, the changeup did not develop as I wanted it to from his debut. It didn't matter. He threw it 10% of the time. Eno Sarris has talked a lot about how having a third option, even if it's a mediocre one, will make you a better pitcher if it's thrown about 10% of the time. That's exactly what Alec Manoa does. And also you have the sinker that had about a near 30% O-swing, which is what you want on your sinkers. You want them to be chasing balls off of the plate. And normally we see bad sinkers be around a 30 to 35% hard hit per PA. 23%. He still did really well with his sinker, uses it exactly right. 207 batting average allowed last year with an X average well under 300. I like everything about this with Alec Manoa. He's in the perfect scenario right now to go and just pitch through the year. I don't see a case where the Blue Jays say, hey, you know what? We're going to slow you down, Alec Manoa. After throwing about 130 innings between the minors and majors last year, he's just going to go through the entire season, collect a ton of strikeouts with a filthy four-seamer and slider that each could earn double-digit whiffs in a given night. You should be getting Alec Manoa in all of your leagues.
Alec Manoa is the 26th pitcher right now off the board, and I'm even surprised by that. And I like the Big Hoss. Everybody knows who listened to Leading Off last year. Every time the Big Hoss took the mound, I just love it. Love that big dude. And as you said, Lance Lynn, I like those guys that look like they're fresh out of the beer softball league who just throw gas and just here it is, hit it, and the confidence on the mound. But there's not a huge track record with Alec Manoa. It's like we have this big body of work in the minor leagues here because he kind of rocketed through. that's a really high ADP. I know you're not one for ranks, Alex Fast, but take me through potentially where you might have him, and do you have him potentially that high? Because he's going ahead of guys like Darvish and Charlie Morton, ahead of guys like my dude Trevor Rogers, ahead of some guys that really have been there, done that to a certain extent, or have shown you enough already to be very excited about. So how do you kind of justify Alec Manoa right now being the 26th pitcher off the board?
I can't. I would theoretically probably have him in the high 30s. I think it's very funny that Nick brings up our colleague and peer and friend Eno Saris, who has him at 38.
Wait, didn't you bring him up earlier?
Eno? He just mentioned him, and we're talking about he needs this other pitch. He needs to change up.
I thought these were your ranks, not Eno's.
Oh, very good point. I said he would be in the 30s. I said he would be in my 30s. I think really you kind of hit the nail on the head, though, where it's like if I'm going to be taking a guy in the early 20s, I'm going to want a little bit more of a track record there. This is a guy who threw 111 innings, and I don't know what that innings pitch ceiling is going to be. And then I don't know. I just like where he's getting drafted right now. It doesn't particularly leave much room for growth for me. And it says that everything that he did last year is extremely sustainable and he's going to have it again. Let's not pay attention to that 3.8 FIP that he could theoretically achieve next year, which if he's doing a 3.8 FIP and he is putting up 140 innings, then that's not the guy that you're drafting at that particular spot, right? I agree with you, Joe. I don't think it leaves in a lot of room for potential growth, and you're assuming that you're going to get exactly what you're going to get. So I think you already made my case for me. So I think we're pretty much done here. I think it's a draw.
Would you guys rather have Zach Gallen or Alec Manoa in
Manoa.
redraft next year?
Easy.
Wow, no hesitation from Nick Pollack. Not a Gallen guy.
I'm a Gallen gal, and I want Alec Manoa.
Okay.
I don't know. That's a little tougher for me.
He's got his pronouns out there for me now.
I think theoretically you could make the case for Manoa. So because if wins might go to Manoa more than it would go to Gallen, him being in Arizona, but then also being in Arizona is a much better place to pitch than it is in Toronto. So I don't know. That's just to press buttons. I'll go Gallen.
All right. Just to press buttons. I got to tell you, I love the big hoss. Everybody knows I'm a big fan. I can't put him up there yet. I just can't. I need a little bit more of a track record before I start putting him up there. So I don't even know if Alex made a good argument just as much as I think Nick is pushing too hard. I think you want the dynasty version of him to happen in redraft. And we've seen this so many times, Nick, where we get so excited about this young pitcher and it's like a 100 inning sample. And then next year you're like, well, that's not the guy I saw in this 100 innings. And I go ahead. You're raising your hand. Yes. Everyone on the YouTube channel can tell right now. Go ahead. Yeah. What's your question?
The rankings are all relative to the field. It's about the other options around.
It's fair.
And where Alec Manoa is right now is very generous, if not even. I mean, there's guys like Dylan Cease to me that are going ahead who they're expecting this growth, while Alec Manoa just did it. You're saying fast, you're quoting the FIP, but you didn't quote the FIP with Marcus Stroman for some reason.
You know what? In all fairness, Dylan Cease has been out there on the major league level taking his lumps and then progressed. We haven't seen the league adjust to Alec Manoa yet. When the league adjusts to Alec Manoa, I would love to see what happens to Alec Manoa. Can he adjust back? Dylan Cease got adjusted to and then adjusted back, and we saw that in spades last year. So I actually think that's a dangerous road you're walking down.
We just got 111 innings of him dominating the majors, and that's a negative?
Oh, it's not a negative.
Earlier,
I'm just saying it's not a negative.
If he had been dinged, then then he... I don't understand that completely.
Well, but how many times in the past have we seen guys not get dinged in their early going, only to then come back the next year and get dinged, and then again make adjustments? I believe he's that good.
I'm not suggesting that Alec Manoa is this. That is a 3.22 ERA with a 105 WHIP. But to suggest that all of a sudden he falls down to being a 3.8 with a 120 and change WHIP, I think is way too far given the skills of what he throws with the fastball and the slider.
Look, he is going in the same breath as Joe Musgrove. That's a tough sell for me right now. He's going in the same breath as Montas, which is, they're right back to back. Darvish, Charlie Morton, Dylan Cease.
Yeah,
these are guys that I feel a little bit more solid about personally. That's where I'm at. Alex, I know you, again, rankings not your bag, but what you tell me, those names, is Manoa belong in that conversation with those names?
I don't know if yet he does.
I don't think he does yet.
I'm going to tell you right now, Manoa is going to be like a 25 for fast in like 3 weeks. He's going to have him above.
Well,
he's going
to
have
you guys to come
Blake
back.
Snell's injury and Darvish's volatility that he's seen forever. He's going to do it above Trevor Rogers, who had his 117 WHIP last year, who doesn't have, it's a fastball change.
Never underestimate Spike.
All of these guys All of these guys have their question marks for next year. Alec Manoa is the one that stands out because he has 2 elite pitches that he did for a very significant sample.
Extra innings here because we're tied. This is not a guy on your list.
No,
I
can't do extra. Now. I literally cannot do extra innings.
This is it. Last guy. Tell me, should you be drafting Jacob Degrom this year? Yes or no in redraft leagues? Alex Fast, yes or no, and why? Real quick.
Yes. Even yes.
At the premium, he's going.
Yes.
Nick
100%.
Pollack, yes or no?
No, it's too much of a risk. You don't want to put yourself in that situation.
Nick Pollack, that is the correct answer. I'm sorry, Alex Fast. I can't believe it. I did not want Nick. Nobody's rooting for the president. Nobody ever wants the guy at the top to win.
Yeah,
but there you go, Nick. Congratulations. You won. You're right. It's too dangerous to make that. I just wrote about that in Fantasy Pros, and you can go check that out on the latest article we just have on FantasyPros.com/MLB, our featured pros about the pitching landscape. I am terrified of Jacob Degrom this year, and not because I'm just a Met fan, but because as a baseball person. How can we make this investment in this pitcher? Why are we getting no discount on him after what happened last year? I don't get it. I don't understand it. He is mind-blowingly great, just like our 2 guests here. But at the same time, I'm not willing to put that draft capital. However, I put all the draft capital in these 2 guys. Follow them on the Twitter machine at AlexFast8. And of course, at Pitcher List for Nick Pollack. And go check out Pitcher List and all the fantastic work that they do. Gentlemen, I can't thank you enough for your time, for your patience with each other, and of course, for all the knowledge you've shared with our audience. I also want to remind everybody, don't forget about our cheat sheets over at FantasyPros.com/draftwizard. You can construct your own cheat sheet with the experts of your choice, and maybe even Alex Fast, if he puts his rankings up sometime in the next 48 hours, you can add him to that list as well. And you can check that out at FantasyPros.com/draftwizard. And every time those experts update their rankings, your cheat sheet will be updated. It's an incredible way to be armed for your drafts. And go check out our draft simulator and draft assistant tools as well. That'll do it for us, but the story of the game goes on. For Alex Fast and Nick Pollack, I'm Joey P. We'll see you next time, kids.
Thanks for tuning in to the Fantasy Pros YouTube channel. Don't forget to check out our featured videos. And while you're at it, make sure to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Fantasy Pros, so you can get the latest news and updates to give you the edge you need in your fantasy league.